Welcome back to part 6 of the Pictorial whole cloth quilt tutorial. We're picking up after finishing the large tree in part 5. The next thing that we come to is a second small tree for the church scene. And I don't think you need me to show you how to do that. Just follow what you did with the first one. But we do need to talk about the snow. Now when you're doing the snow, you're just going to sort of follow those little guidelines that were in your drawing. You don't have to be exact. Snow is just kind of mounding up here, and that's all this is. It's just an illusion. And instead of cutting each time, if you tie a knot at the end of each row, you can then drag your thread down to the next place you're going to stitch. These little semicircle type things that we're stitching right now are supposed to be footprints in the snow. When you're done stitching them, they should almost look like commas laying on their side, if that gives you an idea of how to do this. And you will just keep doing each one of these until you get up to the steps of the church or until you get to your cabin. Wow, that's a lot of fluffy snow. We'll deal with this later. The ninth thing that we're going to get to is the first thing we started with, and that's the large pine tree. Now you can stitch around the pine tree, and you can stitch all the snow elements inside the tree. Last but not least, we're going to stitch the inside of the frame. Okay, let's pause for a minute. How many of us, when we're quilting something, run into a problem? Well, we're going to turn those problems around and think solutions instead. The first thing I came across was I don't really like this looseness in the frame, but if I put my fingers and segment it, do you see how it automatically tightens up? Let me show you that again. It's all loose. Put your fingers down and it tightens up. So I think that's what we're going to do, even though it wasn't on your drawing. We're going to add to it. This was a picture of a mirror that gave me the inspiration to make this fix. Following the inspiration, I used the Handy Quilter Versatile and stitched along the curved edge and brought it down about 1/4 of an inch and stitched again. But if you don't have one of those, you can use a spool of thread, a glass, anything that's round, and just draw those segments in to match our inspiration. Now you don't have to be exact on this. I placed my segments about 2 inches apart all the way around my frame. But you can use your own discretion as to how you want to mark yours. The nice thing about this is the frame doesn't go all the way around in one piece, so you don't have to worry about getting your measurements exactly right. After you have all your segments marked, you could go ahead and proceed stitching, and you can just backtrack on your previous stitching. Now here's a hint, and this is why I told you to watch this series, this part 5 and 6, before you start stitching. If you haven't already stitched your inside frame, you can do that while you're adding your segments. Oh no, look at all that snow. You better have snowshoes if you want to go into that church. Well, the solution for this one is to call in the janitor and tell him he needs to sweep off those sidewalks. So here we go. Let's sweep away. Boy, that janitor's really fast. And guess what he's doing? Nothing more than what we did before. This is just some more thread sketching. We're going straight across, horizontally, back and forth in an irregular path making it a little wider as you get to the edge of your frame so that you have dimension. You can go right over your footprints. You don't have to go around them. And before you know it, you have a nice path swept so people can get into the church. So just that quickly, we've solved the problem of the lackluster frame and no path leading into the church. When you set your mind to it, you can always find a solution. The next problem I ran into was after I took away all the markings. Do you see how everything kind of fades together? You can hardly even make out the trees in the background. Very disappointing. But I'm not a quitter, not when I've come this far, and I've got you all depending on me. So I put a slightly contrasting thread in my machine, and I went around the pine tree, the large tree, the brush in the back, the little tree, the outline of the church, and the frame, and it actually made the design pop. Now I'm happy. So to avoid this very subtle look and get a more detailed look, if you would put a contrasting thread and stitch your frame, your large tree, your evergreen, your small trees, the outline of your buildings, you will get the detail you're looking for, and I think you'll be more pleased. Use your thread that matches your fabric to fill in the detail work. Now, for those of you who are doing the cabin, I didn't forget about you. Let's go in stitching order for you. The first thing, or the fourth thing actually, that you're going to do are the small tree and the branches, and you're going to do that just like we did for the church. The large tree, again, will be done just like we did for the church, and that'll be the fifth thing you do. Now, you're a little more fortunate than the ones doing the church in that your design detail on your cabin is already on your drawing. So the brown stitching that you see on the fabric already simulates the water-soluble thread that you used for your trapunto. So we're going to stitch over top of that around the roof line. And then we'll start getting into some of the detail work. Now you're fortunate in that all the detail work is already on your drawing and you've already transposed that onto your fabric. So right now it's just a matter of tracing your drawn lines and you're good to go. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I would make the suggestion to you that since this is a log cabin, I would use the contrasting thread to do all your detail work with. Your detail is not quite as fine as that in the church, but I think it would give it a nice realistic look since we are dealing with logs. Now some of you may want to get carried away and think, maybe I'll put some shingles on the roof. Well, let's stop and think about that. This is a snow scene. You already have snow on the roof, so we don't need to worry about shingles. That holds true for the church as well. Both roofs are snow covered, so leave that detail out and move on. So the next two items on your list are the snow and the pine tree, and they will be done exactly like they were for the church, so you can follow those directions. Wow, that was a whole lot of detail. In fact, it took us 2 lessons to get through it all. But I can't wait to see what all you have come up with, so make sure you post it for me. I will see you next week with your newest tutorial. It'll be part 7. And you'll see that it starts to get easier from here on in. Next week, we're going to concentrate on the 2 contained fills that will surround your center medallion. See you then.